In October 1958, I was out playing with some little friends of mine, and my main buddy was named David Ezel Simpson. We call him Fuzzy. And we had some little white kids that we played with, and we ran up and down the streets with our dogs. And it just so happened on that day we were playing in this big pipe. And we just, you know, throwing rocks through the pipe, making them squirt, and David was trying to catch spiders and kill spiders and stuff. And so after about an hour of playing in that pipe, some little young girls came over. The little white girls came over, and they wanted to play with us too. So we was all just playing. Just a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. It was an empty lot. It was a corner lot. It had this big pipe there. I don't know if they was going to put it in the ground or what. But anyway, we was out playing that afternoon. We was having a lot of fun, just having a lot of fun. And we played until, you know, the sun began to set and it almost became dark. And so we knew that when the sun set, our parents would come out looking for us, or their parents would come out looking for them. And so we knew that we had to leave and we had to go home. So, like, one of the little boys, one of my little white friends, suggested that the little girls give us a kiss. And the little girls gave us a little kiss. She kissed me first, and then she kissed David. And we didn't think that much. We were just little kids, you know. And so I was like, So I understood later on that one of the little boys had been watching a TV show and had saw where, you know, the guy had gave a little girl a kiss, another kid had gave another kid a kiss. And so that's where he got the idea from. So, you know, everybody went home. They went their way. They lived down the street, and we walked across town. We got our little wagons and got our dogs. And what happened, it was getting dark. So David and I, we didn't make it home. You know, police pulled up on us on Mara Avenue in Monroe. They had their guns drawn. They rolled up on us and snatched us up. And, yeah, there they go. We could see their lights blinking before they stopped because Mara Avenue in Monroe is a busy street and it's a lot of traffic. So they pulled us over and they said, come on here. You know, y'all going to jail. Y'all done raped the little white girl. And, you know, said, y'all been bad out here in these streets and we're going to take y'all to jail. So we like, jail? We ain't did nothing to go to jail for. And so, like, when they pushed me in the car, they hit my head on the car. They didn't, like, put their hand on top of your head and push it down. They just, boom. So, blowed us in the car, took us to jail. And when we got down to the booking station, you know, down in the booking station where they book people in at the adults, we were just little kids. So they told us to sit over there in the corner for a little bit. Then after that, they said, well, just take them downstairs and put them in a cell. So they took us downstairs, they put us in a cell, and we stayed down there for hours. Hours, seemed like hours had passed by. And it was beginning to get darker and darker. And then they came down there, and they said, yeah, we got you now. And they started putting hoods on their heads and stuff, and they came down there and they opened up the cell, and then they started punching us. They started hitting us in the chest and in the stomach area. They wouldn't hit us in the face. And so I didn't know what to think. I was over there in the corner. I was saying, oh, my God, oh, my Lord, what we do. We didn't do nothing wrong. So we were just screaming and hollering. And after they beat us and then they throwed us back in the cell, and I was like, oh, Lord. So we was hollering for our mama and everything else, but no parents came. Nobody came to our rescue. We were just stuck down in the bottom of that cell, and those policemen were just beating us. And so I didn't know what to think. And eventually they took us out of there that night, took us across the street and put us in the big jail where they had the drunk tank and the drunks coming in and people getting booked on real serious crimes. So they took us out those holding cells, and I didn't know what to think.
They put you in with the adults?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They took us over into the big jail and threw us in over there, you know. We wasn't actually in the cell with them. They had empty cells, so they threw us in another empty cell. They took us out the holding cells downstairs. And I was like, oh, my God, what is going on? And so we was asking for, where's the chief at? Where's the chief? We was asking for the chief of police, but he never showed up. So in about a day or two, they took us into court. And when we got to court, it was a judge in there, and there was a little short man. I didn't know who he was. He had on a suit, and come to find out, he was the Attorney General of the state of North Carolina. And they gave us some Porter corner lawyer, and he said a couple words. And then the judge said, well, okay, well, we'll fix this. We're going to send us y'all to Morrison Training School.
Was your mother present?
No, our mother wasn't present. We didn't see our mother for 7 days. And they, like, sent a probation officer, came and put us in a little, like, black Ford car, like a probation officer. And they drove us all the way to the training school, to Morrison Training School. And when we got there, the superintendent and his wife was waiting for us. And so I didn't know what to think. I said, oh, Lord, where's our mama? We was asking for our mama, asking for our mothers. And our mothers never showed up.
Let me just ask you one thing. When you came before the judge, did you get a chance to say your side of the story? Did they ask you questions?
No, because we didn't know what to tell. We said, we ain't did nothing wrong. We ain't did nothing. You know, and David, he was jumping up, you know, saying, we didn't do nothing wrong. Why y'all holding us, you know?
Did they tell you how long you were going to be in the Morrison?
Nope, they didn't tell us how long.
Did they tell you why they were sending you there?
Nope, they said we had kissed a little white, no, they said we had raped a little white girl. And, you know, it was only a kiss, but they said,
And wasn't it a kiss on the cheek?
Yeah, she kissed us on the cheek. And we wasn't thinking about no kiss. David, he running around chasing spiders, and we throwing rocks and acting up, and you know how a bunch of kids do. We're just acting crazy on that corner in those pipes. It was a big metal pipe. And next thing I know, they took us to jail. And I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. Then they started beating us. I said, oh, God, oh, Lord, oh, my God, we ain't did nothing. We ain't did nothing. Why y'all beat? We couldn't understand why grown people was beating us up. But we didn't have nobody to defend us. So all we could do was just holler and cry and scream. And we kept saying, where's our mama? Y'all need to call our mama.
And what did the officers say when you said that?
They didn't say nothing. They were just talking to themselves. You know, they pay us no attention, like we didn't exist.
What did you think when the men with the white sheets came in?
Oh, at first I thought they was playing. You know, they come in there with those sheets. I figured they was playing. I didn't really think they was going to beat us up or nothing. But they put them sheets on their head, and they came down there and got dark and cut off the lights, and they just beat us up.
They turned off the lights after that?
Yeah. So eventually we ended up we had the First Circuit Court in Virginia. We ended up there. They took us into other courts, and we didn't get out. You know, we didn't never get out till we found out that Eleanor Roosevelt had started writing letters, and that she was involved in the case. We saw her do an interview on the news with Walter Cronkite, and after a while, the governor contacted us. You know, Governor Luther Hodges, and eventually he signed the pardon. He said, release these kids because this don't make no sense. And people all overseas, everywhere was protesting, and they was writing letters. And, you know, they were saying that's wrong. What y'all doing to these little boys is wrong. And eventually we got a pardon. So at 7 and 9 years old, I was like, a pardon? What's the pardon? But when they told us we had a pardon, I was happy. I was just jumping. Yeah, we're going home. We're going home. Everybody, all the other little kids was happy for us. They said, y'all going home. Y'all going home. Y'all got a pardon. Y'all got a pardon. So eventually, probation officer came and drove us to Charlotte and moved our family up from Monroe. Moved us in a section called Double Oaks. It was a nice, had a Double Oaks school, had swimming pool, had parks. It was a nice neighborhood. And they had
That was a project, right?
Hmm?
It was a project.
Yeah, it was a project. It was a project. And they had chased our family out of town. They had killed my dog, shot up our house, and, you know, bullets there. They get out there and sweep bullets off the porch. And it was just terrible. They just kicked our family out of town. I don't know how they got out of town, what truck took them, or how they was able to get to Charlotte. But I know they moved our family to Charlotte. They lived up the hill. We all lived on the same street. They lived on Horn Drive, but they lived up on the hill. And we lived down at the bottom of the hill where you go through to go to the elementary school.
Why did they kill your dog? I mean, this was
The
Rusty.
dog was barking, I think. That's what it was. You know, 'cause somebody come around our house, Rusty, he didn't play. He would bark. And David had a dog named Bullet, and we both had dogs. And they shot the dog house. They were shooting at the house. They had bullets flew all on the porch. They shot at the dog, shot up the doghouse and killed the dog.
I remember Mama saying she swept bullets off the porch.
Yeah. I've seen
You were
that.
there.
I've
So
seen that. I've
how
seen
old were you when this happened?
I had to be about 8.
So what do you remember?
I remember missing him and how they, the dogs or whatever. They wanted to hush the dogs up because when they were around the house, the dogs would bark and let you know somebody was out there. Mm-hmm. And Mama and Miss Jenny, they were real. David's mom and my mom was real, kind of nervous and stuff. And you could hear them out there. And the next morning they would get up and go outside, sweep bullets off the porch. I remember it like it was yesterday. Wow. I remember when they came to move us on the truck, and we were kind of happy that we were getting out of there, moving to Charlotte. We didn't have to be terrorized no more at night and stuff and scared to sleep. Mom used to sit up, and they would sit up and look out the windows and stuff and try to peep. And my aunt used to live right next door to us, right there on Parker Street. It was something.
Now I remember you telling me about the Ku Klux Klan coming in front yard on horses and build a burn a cross in the front yard.
Burn a cross in the yard.
Burn a cross in the front yard.
Yeah.
You must have been terrified.
Yeah, we was terrified. And to see my mom that scared and stuff.
Were you able to visit your brother at the Morrison School?
They didn't allow you to visit.
So your mother was not allowed to visit?
She didn't visit for a long time. And it seemed like it was forever before they got a chance to see him and David.
And another awful thing that you said on Oprah was you talked about you had to see the psychiatrist.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, every week I had to see a psychiatrist.
This was after you got out.
After I got out, yeah. So I guess that was part of my release, was to go see a psychiatrist once a week. Mm-hmm. So I would go in there and he would say, "Oh, you ain't nothing but a little rapist. You're a little rapist. You done did this and did that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you must be, what did he say? He said, you must be crazy or something. And, they need to castrate you and stuff like that. He was talking about castrate. So I didn't know what it meant because that was a big word to me, castrate. I didn't know what that meant. I said, what is that? And he said, oh, I didn't know, But that's all he kept saying. They need to castrate you.
You were such a little kid. How does a little kid make sense of that, of what happened to you? How did you turn it over in your mind?
It affected us all our life. David has never got out of prison because it still affected his mind. Yeah. He can never stay out, And I just...
Get out and go right back in.
Yeah. Everybody talked about us and all the churches everywhere. Yeah, that's them little kisses. That's the little kisses. Little rapists. That's what they was calling us. Little kisses, little rapists. Yeah. Y'all know y'all did it. A lot of kids thought it was funny.
What kind of things would kids say to you?
They would say bad things. They would say, oh, y'all rape these little girls. Y'all kiss these little girls. And, they would say nasty things to us. It was bad because all night long you could hear the cars going up and down the street because the police station was close to the road. They had 2 buildings. Down here, they had like central booking. And up here, they had like booking for the drunks. And down there in the bottom of that cells where they had us in the holding cells where they would put the drunks at, And we could, we was just hollering and screaming, and we could hear them bringing other people in handcuffs and shackles and stuff. And we didn't know, I had seen the Ku Klux Klan. I had seen them burn crosses on people's yard. I had seen them march. I had seen all that.
Did you also miss crack?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had seen all that. And I thought they was going to kill us. And we was just hollering and screaming. Oh, I want to get out of here. Call my mama. And we start kicking on the wall and stuff, how kids do. We want to
Did
get
that
out
help get
of there.
anybody's attention?
They wouldn't pay us no attention. They just talk junk. Shut up back there. That's what they were saying. So what they did, they got on a pickup truck. All of them got their guns, and they was riding around looking for us. But the police found us before they could find us, because they would have shot us. Yeah, they was mad. They was going to kill us. We're going to kill them little niggas. We're going to kill them. They had these guns, And like I said, they shot up our house. They shot up. That was a mob. That wasn't the police did that. That was a mob. So it was terrible.
A lot of people didn't want nothing to do with it at all. Were afraid. And my aunt said, don't come down here with this mess now. These are later years, and she just died, about 8, 9 years ago. When you talk about going down there, doing something about the kids, don't bring it down here. She
Yeah.
said it was too much going on when it was happening.
Because she was
She
still
don't want to
living in
bring it
Monroe.
back. She's still living in
Yeah,
Monroe.
my Aunt Isabel, yeah.
Don't come down here with that stuff
Yeah.
right now.
They just swept it under the rug. They just tried to move on. Even the city just tried to move on. The people in the community. There's people going to church together. People working in the community. And when you start talking about the kissing case, they remember because it was a divided town. The town was divided because of the kissing case. You know, and you had to go to work for these people. Black folks work for the white folks, and out of the good graces of white people, you got a job. So, you know,
That's come back down here with that mess.
that's
Lord.
the environment. That's what it was.
Nobody wanted to hear about it.
So to get along, everybody go along to get along and keep moving. Don't talk about the kissing case. Let's just keep going. That's a thing in the past. Keep moving.
A lot of people still don't know about that. You know.
Yeah.
Very true. Every grown
Katherine Massey Book Club, Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy, information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, August 7, 2026. So I have been told. This is our 5th installment on the memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams, picking up on chapter 31. We concluded last week. We had both the so-called kissing case and the attempted rape of Mrs. Reed. That was the very pregnant, 3rd trimester pregnant Mrs. Mary Ruth Reed. Anyway, but we talked about those two cases and how they impacted Robert F. Williams, and particularly him saying, hey, we cannot continue to tolerate these sorts of injustices and rapes of black females and just abusing, throwing black children into prison, and counter violence needs to be an option. I thought it was important. We heard that was a 2025 interview from James Hanover Thompson, who is one of the 2 privileged black boys in the kissing case in Monroe, along with David Simpson. But you heard from Mr. Thompson and then his siblings, Dwight and Barbara, and them giving you their recollections of the case, how he was treated, the impact that it had on the family and what have you. Again, now this is from 2025, so this is pretty recent. When he talked about how they lived, Mr. Thompson, how they lived pretty close to where the police department was, or one of the police stations, probably the only police station in Monroe, I thought, oh man, I have to go and see in terms of time-wise. So would Jesse Helms Sr., would he still have been involved with the police department? Would he have been involved in terms of an enforcement officer in this case, to be one of the ones that go abusing people? Or would that just be the legacy that he has set for, you got to be tough on the niggers? You got to be tough on the niggers. Remember, we heard that one, and Jesse Helms Sr. allegedly dragging a black female down the street. So the legacy that he set, or was he involved in this directly? Then the treatment of these black males, they get, black boys, they get put in prison. Reminded me of George Stinney, too, right in South Carolina. That was only a decade before this case. But they get put in prison like adults. So they are in the drunk tank. And, said, we didn't do anything, and being terrorized and all of that. Said that they got white men in masks who came and beat them while they were in prison. Said, you need to be castrated, you little rapists. I was absolutely stunned. Them saying, you're 7, you don't even know what they're talking about. What are you even talking about? And I was thinking, too, like, now, if you did know what they were talking about. You don't even allow me to get educated. So, I mean, you're using all the multi-syllabic words, man. Like, I don't even know what you just said. You don't even listen to the library. If I did, oh my God. Are you serious? Anyway, so we go over all of that. The man not race, race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood. Delectable Negro would have a lot to say about all of that as well. Anyway, but they continue and talking about how they were abused and mom not allowed to see them for all of these years. Even I did think briefly for both of these young black boys, if they had been allowed to call their moms or have them come to the prison, that would not have improved this situation at all. From everything we've heard from Robert F. Williams, like, oh my God, like, I raped your mother last week. I dragged your mother down the street last week. Your mother works for my mother. And better not say anything or she'll be fired, and then we'll go around to rape her again. I mean, that's the system of white supremacy. What is your black mother going to do? What did their black mothers do? They couldn't do anything. They had to go get help from Robert F. Williams. We're victims. That's attempted father, attempted mother, attempted parents. That section where they said we were dependent on the good graces of white people for employment. What I just said. We were dependent on the good graces. It was just the phrasing of it. Somehow within all of this, and I didn't even know about everything that Mr. Simpson, he was not in this interview, that he endured, apparently going to jail repeatedly, that they talked about and how it impacted them, and how could it not? But I didn't even know about all of that. Like, if they have a book about this case and what happened to these two black boys, like, that would be, hey, we should have that on the shelf, yes? But man, when they talked about that and how they were terrorized, their mom had to go and sweep bullets off the porch on a regular basis, and the race soldiers shot the dog, and what? We didn't heard about racists shooting a black person's dog before. Nat King Cole, they killed his dog. Nat King Cole, we heard about that in Warmth of Other Suns. We've heard about this before. I'm just saying, like Romulus and Remus rolling over in their grave. But the good graces of white people, that ain't good graces. That is the racism of white people to employ you in the lowliest of jobs for the least of wages. And at the end, I thought it might have been one of the most important things on that segment, castration, all of it. When Mr. Thompson's sister, Barbara, when she said, even years later, decades later, people don't know about this case, true, but she said that her aunt said, don't you come down here to Monroe talking about no kissing case. I still live here. I do not want nothing to do with all of that. That right there is standard. That right there, nary I say, is black culture. That is the almost unified response. Not all, but that is a very, very common response of victims of white supremacy. That's what happens when you experience terrorism. I don't want to have to go and sweep bullets off my porch ever again. I don't want my family pet killed. I don't want to be killed. It is by the good graces of white people that I am alive, employed, housed. Don't you come down here talking all that mess about no kissing. And if this is Barbara saying that her aunt, that would mean this would have to be Mr. Thompson's aunt too, I would think. Like, right? They're siblings. So, I mean, we got the same relatives. So, I mean, your aunt is saying, I don't want to hear nothing about how my nephew was terrorized and racists beat him and we're talking about castrate. Shh. Got to stay in the good graces of racists. We gonna get to it. The Memoirs. Ain't that some black male privilege for you? Jesus. The Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams. Katherine Massey Book Club. Context of white supremacy.
Chapter 31. We will meet violence with violence. There was a reporter there from the Associated Press, and he turned to me with pad and pencil in hand, anxious to hear and record my response. My response was, in a civilized society, the law is a deterrent against the strong who would take advantage of the weak. But the South is a social jungle, and it has become necessary for us to revert to the law of the jungle. From this day forward, we must become our own judge, jury, and executioners. We must create our own deterrent, and from this day forward, we will meet violence with violence. The AP reporter rushed out of the courtroom. The white woman lawyer went across the street to the Bluebird ice cream parlor, hoping to be served a sandwich. The manager of the Bluebird asked her to leave and to go back with the niggers, because they served only white people there. Her spirit was broken by the intensity of the traumatic experience. She flew back to New York, and we never heard from her again. That night I was awakened at midnight by a call from the Greensboro, North Carolina Bureau of the Associated Press. The reporter apologized for calling me at that late hour, but he wanted to check with me before filing his story. He reminded me that I had made an angry statement at the Union County Courthouse about 5 p.m., and he wanted to give me time to cool off. He read the statement back to me and asked if I wanted to retract it. I told him that what I had said earlier I would say again that midnight, and if he called me 6 years from then, I would say the same thing. He said, "Okay." That was a rather violent and provocative statement, and I wanted to be sure that you meant it. The following morning was like I had set the entire world ablaze. The southern radio stations were blaring all day. The television joined the clamor, and it seemed that I was being misquoted from every quarter. The meaning of my statement was being distorted in an extreme way to turn the wrath of all white America against me. Some bigoted Southern press and radio stations trumpeted in shrill tones that extremist Negro leader advocates murder of white people. Some even stretched the point to the extent that I had advocated the killing of white babies in their cradles. The telephone was ringing so intensely that it seemed that it was going to jump off the table. All kinds of people wanted to interview me, hoping that they could goad me into making irrational statements. It was customary for Southerners to label black people who dared to defend themselves against whites as crazy niggers. They hoped I would speak in a manner that would add validity to their racist mindset. Chapter 32. Disappointing Rift with the National NAACP. Roy Wilkins, the executive secretary of the NAACP, called. His was the voice of an angry and pressured man. He wanted me to come to New York, go on national television, and apologize to the white people of America. He explained that many white people contributed to the NAACP and were very much disturbed by my violent statement. I told him that I did not speak for the NAACP, but for Robert Williams as a man. He retorted, "You're a branch president, and we are bound too close for your statement not to affect us. We are a nonviolent organization, and as a branch president, your violent statement will be attributed to the whole organization. We are too close to be separated in a situation like this." I responded by asking, if we are so close, why didn't the organization come to my aid when Nationwide Insurance Company canceled my coverage on the grounds that I was too much of a risk to hold an insurance policy with it? Roy said that he would give me time to think about the apology and that he would get back to me later in the day. As promised, he did call back later. My answer was the same. His tone of voice gave evidence that he was highly peeved and impatient with my attitude. He informed me that the national office had decided to suspend me as branch president, and that the action would be verified in writing by telegram. Immediately after our conversation, however, the news media networks announced that I had been suspended for advocating violence. Members of our local branch were furious. The prevailing attitude was that the New York office had done nothing that voluntarily demonstrated support for our branch. In fact, it was stated that Wilkins had labeled me a dictator because of the way the branch was run. Some months earlier, during the state convention, a group of the old guard with the support of the state president, Kelly Alexander, met with the principal speaker, Thurgood Marshall, and attempted to solicit his support in removing me from office on the grounds that I was provoking race war. During Thurgood's speech, he stated that he would rather see militant leadership make honest mistakes than to see them do nothing. He took the wind out of their sails and left them frustrated because not only had he refused to side with them, but before the entire conference had given some credence to our militancy. Meanwhile, on the local front, I convinced the chapter that we should not renounce our charter as some members were suggesting. They insisted that they would remain affiliated with the NAACP only if my wife would agree to accept the office of chairperson. The state field representative, Charles McLean, paid us a visit, and feeling the futility of trying to get us to adhere to New York's line, contacted the national office. He then informed us that my suspension was not permanent, but merely for a term of 6 months. It was now okay for my wife to act as chair until the end of my suspension. The next day, in an interview with the Carolina Times, I again pointed to the lack of protection from the courts. I said, "These courts' decisions opened the way to violence. I do not mean that Negroes should go out and attempt to get revenge for mistreatment or injustices." I made this statement again on the same day over a Cincinnati radio station, and later that evening in a telecast interview in Charlotte. I again made it clear that I spoke of self-defense when the courts failed to protect us. The right of self-defense seemed such an elementary human right and so natural and obvious to me that I could not understand the intense fallout and the great notoriety it engendered across a nation so violent as the United States. Every school child knows that violence gave birth to America. 2 years previously, when we had exchanged gunfire with the KKK in self-defense, not a single white newspaper in America reported the incident. We were merely serving notice that violent racists who dared attack us could no longer expect to escape with impunity. The announced belief in such a simple principle had sent shockwaves across the nation. The aspect that I had not considered was that establishing a principle born out of our experience, which could and would set an example to others, was greatly feared by the power structure. It also shook up the NAACP and set off a debate that forced the organization to make an official renunciation of the right of African Americans to self-defense against racist violence. Attorney Conrad Lynn, who acted as our legal representative pro bono, researched the NAACP's constitution and discovered that there was no provision in it to justify the national office's fearful action. Subsequently, I requested a hearing before the National Board of Directors. On June 3, 1959, I appeared for a hearing before them in New York City. The hearing turned out to be a trial with me being the defendant. I was disgusted to learn, for the first time, that Wilkins and other obsequious Negroes were being bent by the white influence personified by white men who sat there silently but wielded total power by eye contact and facial expressions. This even included the chairperson of the National Council of Negro Women, a Negro woman scolding me for the statement I had made relative to my anger spawned by a rape attempt on a pregnant black mother who had been ridiculed in a racist kangaroo court. I had really expected the black woman board member to be sympathetic toward a black man dedicated to the defense of Afro-American women and children. I was wrong. I was in a hostile environment and was made to feel that I was a thug who had committed some repulsive criminal act. I returned home crushed, with only the consolation that the branch was still intact and my wife had been confirmed as president. The national office had proclaimed to the world that as far as the organization was concerned, I was a pariah. I felt the whole affair with the national office was tantamount to proclaiming to the Southern bigots that I was free meat. I did not think of doing anything more immediately about the suspension. There was a more important matter at hand. As a result of the trial, I was more convinced than ever that one of our greatest and most immediate needs was better communication within the race. The real Afro-American struggle was merely a disjointed network of pockets of resistance, and the shameful thing about it was that blacks were relying on the white man's shallow and most times slanted reports as their only information about these isolated occurrences. I went home and concentrated feverish efforts toward developing a newsletter. The newsletter would be our voice in broadcasting to the entire world the Afro-American bitter ordeal of pain, suffering, dehumanization, and struggle in the so-called free world. Chapter 33. The Birth of the Crusader Newsletter. After much hard, late-night work on the part of dedicated volunteers and many fundraising fish fries, parties, and contributions, the funds were raised to start our new project. The first crude issue of The Crusader came off the newly purchased mimeograph machine on June 26, 1959. It caught on like a firestorm. Not only did it cover Monroe, but it also spread across the nation and drew readership and support from at home and abroad. Letters and telegrams urging me to take my NAACP suspension case to the national membership started arriving from all over the country. Subsequently, I decided to appeal the National Board's decision to the 50th anniversary National Convention scheduled for New York in July. In order to combat the emerging sympathy toward me, the national office found it expedient to issue a special convention pamphlet attacking me. The pamphlet attempted to intentionally confuse my statement that Afro-Americans should meet violence with violence as a means of self-defense with the advocacy of lynch law. Through carefully contrived inference, the national office contributed to the erroneous impression played up by the racist press that I was agitating for a race war and the indiscriminate slaughter of white people. My suspension was upheld by the convention delegates, many of whom either felt or were pressured into seeing that the vote was a question of publicly supporting or disavowing the NAACP national leadership. But on the real issue at hand, delegate sentiment forced the national leadership to support the concept of self-defense. The preamble to the resolution passed by that convention, though not widely known, read, "We do not deny, but reaffirm the right of an individual and collective self-defense against unlawful assaults." We were the stepchildren of the NAACP because of our militancy. We refused to allow the national office to tone us down. We had become a part of the civil rights movement because we wanted to end the brutal dehumanization of our people. We were convinced that to challenge such a brutally savage system would instigate violence more widespread and vicious than we had been subjected to prior to our new spirit of resistance. We in the South had personally felt the blows of a most inhuman racist tyranny. We could see no special dignity or human value in granting our oppressors impunity in maiming and murdering our people. Many timid Afro-Americans denigrated our self-defense stance as foolhardy and suicidal. There was an ever-present chorus of frightened blacks across the country that constantly reminded us that to meet violence with violence would place the entire race in jeopardy. We, on the other hand, felt that black Americans were being victimized and killed anyway. This had been our historical plight in bigoted America. We felt that our human dignity required us to fight back. Many black men concealed their unmanly timidity in a newly adorned cloak of pacifism. They had instantly developed split personalities. Black men who never hesitated to use violence against other black men, and even against their women and children, suddenly started to preach of the glorious virtue and power of nonviolence and love. Many blacks wanted to absorb the injury of unmitigated violence until such time that brutal bigots tired of flailing us. We vehemently disagreed and set out on our own course. The national office of the NAACP was determined to stay within the good graces of the numerous, influential, wealthy white Northern supporters and contributors who were disturbed by our militancy. It maintained a hostile attitude toward our branch. We had a charter, and that was all. Chapter 34. Intensified Local Struggle. Bid for Local School Integration. Since we had been wounded by New York's public repudiation, I knew that local bigots expected us to restrict our activity. They felt us to be in an untenable position, but they were wrong. We were more determined than ever to intensify our struggle for civil rights, as we saw the need locally. I had learned from the Marine Corps that the best defense was an offense, and that one of the greatest weapons in combat is the element of surprise. Our two sons, Robert and John, volunteered to become the subjects in a move for school integration. When Mabel and I went before the school board to personally plead our case, there sat Superintendent W.R. Kirkman, who had held that seat for as long as I could remember. It riled me to no end just seeing him there. As I waited for my opportunity to address the body, I remembered how Kirkman had for many years terrified our Negro school with his tyrannical tirades against the black teachers and how they transferred their fear to their young students. When granted the opportunity to speak, I reminded him of how he had approached our classrooms with his hat on and roared like a vicious lion. That night, I spoke to him the way he had spoken to our teachers. He was greatly humiliated to have a black man address him that way in an official meeting. He seemed greatly shocked and disbelieving to be made to realize the very negative lifelong impression he had left on the minds and souls of those he had held in such contempt. The school board stalled and pigeonholed our request, but the confrontation was worth the trouble. They had gotten the news that change was an idea whose time had come. In order to keep the local bigoted power structure off guard, I kept the pressure on them. In 1959, I mounted a political campaign for mayor of the town. In those days, it was unimaginable that an Afro-American militant would dare run for mayor of a southern town. A Reverend C.O.W.S. volunteered to serve as my campaign manager. We asserted the equal time clause and forced the local radio station to grant me time to speak. My run for the town's mayor lifted the sagging spirit of the Afro-American community. We knew that the bigoted vote counters would cheat, but the object was to run and to have a platform. The local press expressed surprise that I received any votes at all, lamenting that some votes even came from all-white precincts. These votes were labeled protests against the administration. My votes were acknowledged to have been as much as 10%. However, it was whispered that there were many more than that. Chapter 35: Escalation of Klan Activity and Economic Pressure. The Klan started to rise its ugly hood again. It didn't dare invade our community again. Meetings were being advertised in the media that it was holding giant rallies in rural communities in the county. Isolated blacks were still being harassed and occasionally attacked. Posters were put up everywhere that a great Klan rally was being planned for Marshville, 12 miles from Monroe, and that the Grand Dragon, a preacher called Catfish Cole, was going to speak. 5 of our rifle club members armed ourselves with 30 caliber rifles and went to the meeting. We stood at the rear of the mammoth crowd. It was nearly dark where we stood. A truck was parked in an empty field along Highway 74. When we arrived, Catfish Cole was viciously lambasting niggers, Jews, and Catholics. He was working the crowd up to a passion of white heat. He said, "Ava Gardner, a white girl who went to school right here in North Carolina, who attended your Sunday schools, has just left her third white husband for a one-eyed nigger." He was referring to Sammy Davis, Jr. "I say, ladies and gentlemen, that we have got to move now if we want to save our white race and our God-given country." The crowd roared its approval. One of the security guards approached the makeshift platform, spoke to Cole, and pointed toward the darkened rear where we stood with our rifles. Catfish said, "They tell me that some niggers are out here, but I tell you there ain't a nigger within 10 miles of here. They are at home, hiding under the bed and shaking like they got the double pneumonia." Again, the crowd up front roared with laughter and applause, while those near us looked back and inched closer toward the speaker. Another hooded vigilante came back and stared at us. We did not cow, so he moved back and reported to Catfish. Catfish again interrupted his tirade to announce over the PA system, "I understand some niggers are here. Well, that's all right. It's always good to have a few burrheads around. They bring us luck." At that, the crowd snickered, but made no move towards us. We had again seized the initiative and had successfully applied the element of surprise in our struggle. A few nights later, an Afro-American trucker who was passing through town sought us out at midnight. He explained that he had read about our troubles with the Klan. He refused to state his name and said that in the future he would deny ever having seen us and that he wanted us to do likewise. He said that he had brought us a gift, compliments of the Teamsters Union. The box he gave us was a full case of dynamite. Volunteers were beginning to show up from many unexpected places. 2 white students from Davidson College came offering their services. 2 soldiers, 1 black, 1 white, came from Fort Jackson, South Carolina, offering to get us any kind of weapons we needed to fight off the Klan. Another Klan rally was publicly announced to take place behind the Mineral Springs School, which was located 6 miles from Monroe. Klansmen claimed to be getting strong enough to wipe us out. We wanted to let them know that we were also preparing for defense. So, a detail from our guard volunteered to go and set off a big explosion along the road near the huge rally site. It so happened that we had had a heavy rainfall the day before the event. The dynamite was dropped in a stream of water and did not explode. It had to be retrieved just before daybreak the day after the rally to avoid the danger of being discovered and traced to us. A series of fires started to plague the town almost nightly. Sometimes the night seemed to be aglow with fires. My telephone started to ring incessantly. An unidentified white man would call after each fire alarm. His accusatory conversation would go, "Nigger, goddamn your black soul. If we don't get rid of you soon, you're going to burn this goddamn town down." I told him that he was a witness that I was at home, and it was a known fact that I could not be in 2 places at the same time. His response, "Well, goddamn it, if you ain't doing it, you're hiring it done." Again, I reminded him that the whole power structure had unleashed economic pressure against me to the extent that I was hardly able to survive, and how in hell did he think I would be financially able to pay someone to burn the town down? In a rage, he would slam down the phone. Telephone threats against my family and me started around the clock. We could not sleep through the night. We dared not take the phone off the hook, because the telephone was our lifeline of communication for our defense. Occasionally, we could hear distant gunfire in the night. These terror tactics were meant to strike fear in our hearts. The robed terrorists had to remain in the distance, using fire and run tactics. They did not confront us personally, but the telephone threats intensified. The harassment was taking its toll. We got our heads together and tried to ascertain where calls might possibly originate from on a 24-hour basis. We reasoned that they most likely were coming from some place that operated around the clock. We considered the police and fire stations. If the calls were coming from there, we had no way to prove it. It so happened that one night, a black man whom the racists trusted as a good Negro had gone to an all-night service station where many white men congregated late at night. As he manipulated the cigarette vending machine, he overheard one of the men making threats on the telephone while the others looked on and laughed. He immediately came to inform us as to what he had observed. 6 of us got our weapons and descended on the nest of bigots. They were stunned and sat frozen and speechless as we burst into the service station. I announced to them that I was Robert Williams, that they had been making threatening calls to my house around the clock, and that if another such call should be made to my home, we would return and shoot that place all to pieces. After that confrontation, the calls ceased. It was quite a relief to be able to sleep again. I was a member of the local Unitarian Fellowship. We had complete integration in the fellowship before the courts had mandated integration in the South. The founder of the fellowship, J. Ray Shute, who was also a businessman developer, had attracted a textile mill from Boston, Massachusetts, to locate in Monroe. He interceded on my behalf and convinced the owner to hire and train me. The industrialist boasted that he was going to make me the first black steam boiler engineer in the entire South. I was elated that at last I was going to have the opportunity to explore an income-producing opportunity that would help me gain some economic stability. When the mayor of Baden, North Carolina, the town where the plant had located, came to inspect the new plant, he recognized me from photographs that had appeared in the press. That was the end of my promised career. I learned from my FOIA files that the FBI was involved. The nationwide insurance company agent J.L. Rabin had canceled my car insurance on the grounds that I was too much of an insurance risk. Many of the local laborers, some of whom earned as little as $40 a week, gave me $2 of their pay to keep me afloat economically. The local clan-infested power structure had hoped to do economically what it had failed to do violently. Local black farmers brought us food, and the community gave what they could in order that I could manage to stay there as their leader. When local whites failed to starve me out, they spread the rumor that I was being supported by communists. They could never accept the fact that blacks could ever demonstrate unity to that extent. Chapter 36. Connecting with Cuba, Libre, and red baiting in the NAACP. In the summer of 1960, I was extended an invitation to become a founding member of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. I joined, and in late summer, I was invited, along with a group of 18 other black people, to visit Cuba on the occasion of the first anniversary of the revolution. I was the only Southerner and local leader in the group. The others were writers and artists. Because I was from the South of the United States, Fidel Castro took a special interest in me. At the end of our tour, Fidel suggested that I remain in Cuba. He said the Cuban people liked me. I explained to him that I wanted to remain in the South. However, I could foresee the possibility of me having to leave the South eventually. A few months later, I was back in Cuba, along with Richard Gibson and Bob Tabor, to cement relations relative to the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. While there, I received a telephone call from my wife that the Klan had threatened to blow up the house and kill my family. This threat was a source of great concern to me because I was not there to defend them. I knew the Guard would go to any extent to defend them, but I had observed that the local people were much more effective and daring when I was on the scene to lead them. I decided to up the ante. I felt the need to escalate the situation to a point wherein the U.S. government would have some special incentive to protect my family. I made a call home and discovered that the local police chief had made a joke of my wife's complaint. Accompanied by a Cuban newsman, I went to the U.S. Embassy and asked to speak with the U.S. Ambassador, Philip Bonsall. Subsequent to the fact that I was told that the ambassador was busy and therefore unable to see me, I asked the receptionist to relay a message to him. I asked the receptionist to please inform him that my visit was urgent and that it could possibly involve a life-and-death situation for him. An instantly invigorated receptionist turned red in the face, displayed nervousness, and told me to wait. She hurried to a nearby office and came back and escorted me into the ambassador's office. He offered me a seat, but I continued standing. I told him that I was an American visiting Cuba, and that back in Monroe, North Carolina, the Ku Klux Klan had threatened to blow up my home and kill my family. He asked me when this had happened and how I had received the information. I informed him that my wife had called me by telephone and that she had taken the threat seriously. He didn't seem to give too much credence to my story until I told him that if anything should happen to my family, I would kill Americans in Havana and he would be the first one to go. His interest perked up immediately. He started asking questions, wrote down my name and the city, and promised that he would contact the U.S. State Department immediately. He assured me that I could rely on my family being protected. He counseled me that there was no need to even think of such extreme measures. Later that night, when I called home, my wife told me that a police car was patrolling the street on which I lived. For the first time, the police displayed a protective presence. On my first trip to Cuba, I had been given a Cuban national flag, which I flew in my backyard under the U.S. flag. When I returned home from my second sojourn, the Cuban flag had disappeared. I learned from an eyewitness that a local young black paratrooper had torn it down and taken it away. One night, while I was talking to one of the town's tough guys, a few blocks from my home, the black paratrooper appeared, and the tough, named Holly Shannon, struck him, knocked him down, and held him down with a knife to his throat. I pleaded with Holly not to cut his throat and to let him up. Holly said the paratrooper knew judo, and if he let him up, he could be hurt. I was really terrified that the paratrooper was going to be killed. To save the paratrooper's life, I pulled my pistol and promised Holly that if he let him up and the paratrooper jumped him, I would shoot the soldier. The trooper seemed greatly relieved to have survived the ordeal. 2 days later, the paratrooper came to my door and gave me a repaired, cleaned, starched, ironed, and neatly folded Cuban flag. He said that he was sorry for what he had done and wanted to apologize. He said he knew what he had done was wrong, but that he had done it while drinking and prompted by a dare.
Sobriety would be best. Katherine Massey Book Club, context of white supremacy. So we will resume. We are in chapter 36, midway. We will pick up on page 4. Well, hey, I don't think there's an audio or anything else wacky at this point. There's only a hard copy book, unless I've been misinformed. So we're picking up on page 117, relative to the series of initiatives we had taken, comma. That's what we're picking up at. Second paragraph on page 117. Any hoodles, I will give one share. We missed, Washington State and Gus's beloved Seattle has taken a beating, and Gus T as well. All of us, everybody, collectively and Gus individually, have taken a beating for 2026 and especially for the summer of 2026. They're the shooting, fight of Seattle just days ago, fatalities and all the rest. And then they had the fires, which are not in Seattle specifically, or even close to here, opposite side of the state. But I even had a robust, brief giggle. I remembered when some of the obsequious, non-constructive cows listeners, Gus T, went to California and they had the wildfires, and I said, oh my Lord, ugh. People in SoCal, you should be concerned about that. And they were laughing and giggling. Oh, ignorant Gus. You don't know. We don't even live around the wildfires. I was like, well, you live in Southern California. So anyway, I remembered that the wildfires are not near Seattle, opposite side of the state, but all of that soot and smoke drifted across the state here and darkened the sky, and it has been awful. And even in that, my snicker and remembrance of the non-constructive behavior of obsequious C.O.W.S listeners, non-white people in general, I even saw a report on KQED where there were concerns all the way in California about the Washington state wildfire smoke disrupting their air quality. I really try to minimize my conversations with black people. Whew, I feel you, Robert F. I feels you. Anyway, but I got sick right literally at the exact, and these wildfires, a white person, someone, I suspect these white pictures I saw, this is an arson thing, just like in California, where some of this is like just random race soldier going, I ain't got nothing else to do, I'll start a fire. The destructiveness of white culture. Any hoodles, Gusty got sick simultaneous to the eastern Washington wildfires, and then the smoke came here and just exacerbated. I got like a sinus infection, so the worst to be in an environment where it's, oh no, and now the air quality has been massively compromised, messed up the whole week. We're supposed to have like 3 programs that got disrupted, and anywho, rough summer 2026 for all, but persevering here for the book club. See if we can reschedule and recuperate as we proceed. I did begin to feel a teaspoon better yesterday. Air qualities began to improve today, thank God. While I had my brief moment of energy yesterday, said, let me do some searching for Robert F. Be cool if we could do the book club, if I am up to it. We heard at the beginning the report about the kissing case and the aunt of Mr. Williams saying that she did not want to be involved or have anything to do with Mr. Thompson, James Thompson. We heard that his aunt didn't want anything to do with no kissing case, and even decades later, don't you come down here talking all that fool talk. Well, we'll get one more auntie and then see if folks have commentary to share, thoughts on the first chunk of the reading. So this is from the New York Amsterdam News, June 20, 1959. An aunt speaks. Sir, I am Mrs. Estelle Johnson, aunt of Robert F. Williams of the Monroe NAACP. This is letter of appreciation to the many friends who spoke out in my nephew's behalf. I followed my nephew's progress through his fight for justice for all the colored people of Monroe, North Carolina, and the whole South. I want the whole world to know that I am very proud of my nephew for his stand on civil rights, and I am proud of such a newspaper as the Amsterdam News, which covered everything right down the line from the kissing case up to now. I want to say that the Amsterdam News is the greatest in the country today for getting the facts and speaking out for the race. God bless you and your staff. Importance of black journalism. I shall be a reader of this great paper as long as I can lay my hands on it. I have been a reader for many years. I have also read papers in many states, but the Amsterdam News is the greatest. First on my list of thanks is Mr. Earl Brown, who is a man after my own heart. He is so outspoken. Second is the one and only Dr. Judge A. Thompson, M.D., of Jamaica. Truly, his letter is a masterpiece. I wish we had more men of eminence and influence who would take the time out from their busy practice to help a fellow man. I will forever cherish this letter. Third is my cousin Mac of Brooklyn, New York, who spoke his piece. I agree with him. God bless you, cousin Mac. Next is Adif F. Nerudin of Chicago, who knows when to pray and when to fight. Next is Harold R. Woodhouse of Cincinnati, who says we must stop being afraid to die for our rights. Last but not least, let me congratulate that sweet and wonderful young lady, Miss Jeanette Abraham, who took time out from school books to say a word for her sex. She is a wonderful young lady with a right-thinking mind. We were all taught to be peaceful, and at the same time, if we could not reason with a person, we were told to fight back if attacked. So you can be sure when the whites in Monroe decide to rape another colored lady, they will get their trial on the spot. I happen to know all the men on the NAACP in that city, and I know there are no cowards there. They are tired of taking. Now they are going to give. I only wish Mr. Wilkins could live there for 2 days. Then he would know what we who were reared there have had to take. I think she's talking about Roy Wilkins of the NAACP. I could tell some things which happened there while I was growing up that would make your hair stand on end. We've heard quite a few thus far, but I mean, hey, the train tracks, dragged down the street, raped Jesse Helms Sr. with the police department, rape a pregnant female, terrorize the blacks. I mean, we heard a bunch. Like, it would take a lot to Benny Montgomery. We're going to drag veterans' body through the road and terrorize all the blacks. So it would take a lot, like, to even, at this point, like, really, you have to give me a whopper. She continues, I want my nephew to keep on fighting. He has a sweet little wife, Mrs. Mabel Williams, whom I adore, and 2 fine sons in Winchester Avenue High School. If that isn't something to fight for, tell me what is. In closing, let me not forget to salute Mr. Conrad Lynn, who, as a lawyer, is the most in my book. Mrs. Estelle Johnson, an angry aunt, that's how she has in parentheses, Flushing, New York. You know, she got an extensive FBI file now. Who is this upstart Negro woman? You in here talking to, even sounding like you ready to kill a white person if they try to rape a black female. We need to get her arrested right now. Whole family upstarts, and violence and militants and criminals. 1959 summer, June 20, 1959. Importance of black journalism. Anyway, the number. That would be one I'd say, hey, now, I was barely getting energy back, and this is, you know, hey, I'll take my little 15, 20 minutes. I think it didn't take that long because I didn't have that much energy. And you can do exactly what I did. You can do this. You can do it on your phone or device and keep the TV on. A lot. Mr. Robert F. Williams, Mabel Williams, they have a lot of material online. A lot of the material has been digitized. Newspaper articles, there's so many about them, even some of the State Department files on they. So you easily could go and look. Let me see some of the articles on this case, the kissing case, while he was in Cuba and these other places. Learn a little bit more, especially if you have connections to North Carolina. You are someone who respects counter-violence. Black people who were not cowards, that might be a theme of the text. Hey, take a moment, do a little research, especially if you have offspring. You can make that a family project. Particularly, I would say, if you have connections to North Carolina, like directly, indirectly, like should be mandatory. Or even Michigan, really, because that's where this story is going to end at. So if you have connections there, connections to Robert F. Williams in any way, shape, form, man, take a moment, because some of the reports around all of this are fascinating, reveal quite a bit about the system of white supremacy racism. Let's see. There was one section, wanted to make sure I got in it. There we go. Okay. Since we have been talking about cowardice throughout, came up last week, might be a theme for the book. Man, that section, this is on page 108. Hard copy, where he says Many black men concealed their unmanly timidity. And that word even stuck out because literally I just today, like hours ago, heard one of Mr. Fuller's lectures from like decades ago. And he said, I am basically a timid person. Kid you not. Just heard that today. Where he said, he was describing his form of codification, counter-racist codification. And prior to reading this, I was thinking, dang, because he, at the point he was saying all this, 2-time veteran, Korean War, like, dang. And working in security all those years, Bureau of Engraving and Printing. But he said, hey, I'm basically a timid person. Anyway, Mr. Fuller was a member of the NAACP. I believe at the time of the kissing case. Many black men concealed their unmanly timidity in a newly adorned cloak of pacifism. They had instantly developed split personalities, black men who never hesitated to use violence against other black men and even against their women and children, suddenly started to preach of the glorious virtue and power of non-violence and love. That is a mountain of cowardice right there. We've been talking about the cowardly nature of white people, which is flagrantly on display throughout this book. But wow, because they dominate the world, that is reflected in our behavior as victims of white supremacy, also because we're victims of terrorism. That is the result of terrorism. You become cowardly. That's what's supposed to happen. That's why they want to drag Benny Montgomery's body through the streets, make these Negroes afraid of doing anything to challenge the system of white supremacy. You don't even say white people. Don't you come around here talking about no kids. Don't you come around here talking about how they were going to castrate my nephew. You get on out of here with all that. That happened 30 years ago. You get out of here with all that. We dependent on the good graces of racists in Monroe. But whoa, that there sentence or two from Mr. Williams, so applicable even to this day. Remind me of Neely Fuller Jr. First time, last time. Remind me of Neely, and remind me of Charles Cobb. That nonviolent stuff will get you killed. He has that at the conclusion. Like, forget all this nonsense. Tim McVeigh, Jeff Dahmer, and come and hacked me up and chopped me up and killed my grandson. And I forgive you, Jeff. Come on and give me a hug. Well, maybe don't do that. Come on and shake my hand, Jeff. I forgive you, Jeff. I know you ate my grandson, Jeff. Come here, Max. I know you just was having problems. I know you didn't mean to do all that to Sade C. Robinson. I forgive you, Max. What? Charles Cobb said, no, I'm going to forgive black people that have got on my nerves and I done cursed and name called and all that. I'm going to work on forgiving them so we ain't got no vendetta. I got to go back and kill Leroy because he looked at me funny or stepped on my foot or said something about me, called my mom a name. That is the revolutionary thought, because we are not nonviolent with black people. I love it. In fact, that right there, the fact that we don't talk all that, we're going to be nonviolent with black people. It's just whitey where you going to be? Nay, we got to be godlike. And the Bible, that is coward. Exactly what do you say? Unmanly. Jesus Christ, that is unmanly. I'm going to go smack Leroy. You don't say nothing about me. White people say something about you, your mama, whole family all day long. Throw you out in the street, everything you can imagine. Well, I'm going to go get Leroy. Cowardly, unmanly, timid, unkept. That's why I further again say, not worthy of being called parents, men, women, none of that. Worthy of great pity, heaps of it, in fact. So appreciated that alone, Nick. Woo, glad we at least recuperated enough to get in that paragraph. And that would be applicable like today, right now. That really is black culture. The only time that we get nonviolent whitey. Worthy of great pity. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. They were talking about one of the many acts of white terrorism in North Carolina today, one that I had just mentioned. Mr. Shetterly was a guest on our broadcast 3 years back. We talked about his brand new book, still new, just came out a couple years ago, about the 5 people who were killed 1979 in North Carolina by racists, and this was allowed to happen. I mentioned this with all the destruction of evidence that happened in that case and collusion between law enforcement, local and federal authorities who allowed these racists to go out and kill 5 people where they were intending to kill a black spokesperson. We talked about all. They just mentioned that case today. North Carolina News. Aaron Shetterly, he was a guest on the program, as I said, some years back. We talked about that case a lot. We've done many programs about the many incidents of white terrorism and history of racism in the bluegrass states, so-called North Carolina and South Carolina. Really, we have done our homework, but certainly North Carolina, Wilmington, and lots more. Goes on and on and on in the archives. Let's see. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. We'll get callers, folks who wrote in as well. I guess we'll keep that since folks have written in about the theme of cowardice and all of that. We'll keep that in mind. If you have thoughts, the main principle, white cowardice, because I think that's been the big one on display. White people being very cowardly in everything that they do, really further emphasizing white culture. Cowardly conduct towards non-white people. That's why it's tacky and trifling and terroristic. Anyway, but we'll keep that in mind as we are reading amongst other things that might stand out as important. I'll say quickly, what else did I find when I had my brief energy surge on Thursday? In addition to that report from Robert F. Williams' aunt, Robert F. made a FOIA request for his CIA file. And it is chunky. Wow. It also is greatly redacted, which might not be the case if you get the file now because Robert F. is deceased. But wow, I have so much respect, and he made this like early to make. I don't even know very many black people say, man, I got my CIA file, my FBI file, and my State Department file, and they are all massive. One and only, Robert F. Okie doke. Let's see. Folks who dialed in, commentary to share. Caller 5962, you have commentary. Proceed.
Yes, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Just staying in the same vein from last week, and then I'm guessing what's going to be the rest of the book is noting the cowardness and cowardly actions of white people, starting with the clip that you played at the beginning for the interview of one of the two boys in the kissing case. Just grown white men putting on their hoods and beating on black kids. Won't even allow them to call their parents, call their mothers, even though I'm not sure what they would have been able to do, but still not allowing them to have someone there to advocate for them, as well as placing them in jail cells with other grown men. I thought it was pretty cowardly actions. From chapter 31, I noted that Mr. Williams' statement to the press and just it being twisted, that he was calling for the killing of innocent white people as opposed to him advocating for armed self-defense, and that if we're not going to get any help, if we're not going to get any justice, then we'll have to take matters into our own hands. I just thought that was interesting and something that is another form of cowardness to twist his words. In chapter 32, I noted that from some of the other documents that went along with this reading, that Thurgood Marshall perhaps being an informant to the FBI, or at the very least forwarding that information that would have had something to do with Roy Wilkins being the executive secretary, and just their clash on the 4-room floor about how to go about things, and Mr. Williams being suspended from the NAACP. The next thing that I noted would have come out of, I believe it came out of chapter 33. Yes, I noted the same thing, the same paragraph you did, with the black cowardness of, hey, we don't say anything to white men, white women, but these black men will, produce some violence against women and children in their own homes and family. I also noted the pamphlet that the NAACP has circulated about Mr. Williams, trying to discredit him and separate him from the NAACP as like a rogue factor of some sort. And then it also, to me, appears that Mr. Williams is struggling with some sort of confusion. He doesn't understand why the NAACP isn't on his side, where he's saying, hey, this tactic that I'm using to combat white supremacy is working, where, if I show up and people of my faction show up with arms, white people tend to leave us alone, or at least go find someone else to terrorize. It just seems to be boring with him in his own mind. He doesn't seem to understand how they're not accepting this information. And then I think the last thing that I wrote down was, the school confrontation, where he remembers that Mr. Kirkman, the superintendent, as he's trying to integrate the school, he remembers how mean he was and rude he was to the black teachers and black students, and even casted fear on all of those that were involved. And I think that's it for this reading.
Much obliged, sir. I think Robert F., he talks specifically about the disappointment, where I guess he had incorrect expectations and thinking that, and maybe it wouldn't be widespread, but at least some of the black females, they would appreciate, like, hey, this is a black dude who is not trying to be one of these old cowardly, timid black dudes who, I'll come and smack a black female around and terrorize the children because Whitey done messed me over today. Like, hey, he is saying, I'm going to come out here and defend these black females, and you don't, go rape pregnant Mary Ruth Reed, Mrs. Mary Ruth Reed. You don't go and rape her when she's 8 months pregnant, and I'm going to go stand up for her, and if it means counter violence, I'm going to do that. He thought they would be, yeah, that's right, get him. No, they didn't think that at all. They thought he was some sort of militant thug. He said he was so disappointed. Confusion about what racism is, how it works. And I would even say that right there, the whole time. Now, I think by this point, we're talking late 1950s, early 1960s. Joel Spingarn, I brought his name up, it seems, all summer long. I think not grasping that the entire structure of the so-called NAACP is dominated by white supremacist enforcement agencies, where the architect, Joel Spingarn, this is a white man, U.S. military intelligence. My entire purpose for being here is to spy on niggers and to control your efforts that you think are about replacing white supremacy with justice. That is like the entire foundation of this organization that still gives out a Spingarn Award to this day, 2026. I brought his name up all the time. He keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up. If you are classified as black, especially at this time, and you do not grasp all of that, that's why I said Robert F. got these FBI files. Now, I don't know if Joel Spingarn's NAACP duties would be in his FBI file. Maybe, maybe not. But if you don't know all of that, I think it would greatly confound your understanding, or even your having correct expectations about how the NAACP is going to respond to you if you're talking about counterviolence or really anything. That's even the kissing case. That wasn't counterviolence. He was just saying, hey, we got these two black boys, and they're saying that they're rapists. They're 7, 9. And, we need to help them. They say, we don't want to get involved in no, sex case. No. Even having a better understanding of why would they respond like that? And then the tackiness of it, once they see that, oh, this is a global outrage. Everybody thinks there's something unjust about this. Maybe we should get involved. Hey, let's get involved. Fire your attorney. We'll pay the bill. Like, why would they behave like, oh, this wasn't set up to replace white supremacy with justice? This is Spingarn's racist white supremacist surveillance project that is a part of U.S. military intelligence. Like, that is a radically different way of thinking about, do I want to be involved? What are my expectations? What do I say when Roy Wilkins calls? Thurgood Marshall being a so-called all of that. And I just, even now, 2026, I think most non-white people don't have this information. We don't study. Ignorant. They don't even let us in the library. Any hoodles. Let's see. Email number 1. Greetings, Gus, listeners, callers. Chapter 31, we will meet violence with violence. My response was, in a civilized society, the law is a deterrent against the strong who would take advantage of the weak, but the South is a social jungle and has become necessary for us to revert to the law of the jungle. I'm so glad that this text is included in the book club. I had not read this text, Negroes with Guns, and it seemed to me that every time I heard his name mentioned in the past, it was about guns and counterviolence. Just reading the early part of this text makes it clear that he was so much more than a gun advocate. He was a veteran, educated intellectual, poet, and from a young age exhibited a lot of courage. Just for starters, racist white supremacists always want to diminish and characterize negatively constructive victims who are trying to produce justice. I think mostly what they do is totally obliterate and delete the existence of Robert F. and Mabel Williams. Even Negroes with Guns is important. That is a shorter book, although it talks about some of these the kissing case and Mrs. Mary Ruth Reed, pregnant black female rape victim. It talks about some of that, but it doesn't go into all this. It's a much shorter text. It's not a double memoir, obviously, but it doesn't go into all this detail. But even with that, I think most people, I don't think, have read that. Robert F. gets conveniently omitted, and then they greatly minimize it down to just, oh, he was crazy Negro with a gun and moving forward. Not even just, oh, dang, Robert F. requested his CIA file and his FBI file and all the his military records. Oh, amazing. Make that FOIA request. He continues. Oh, and I did want to say with that section where he says, in a civilized society, we're in a system of white supremacy, racism. We're not civilized, not even close. Mr. Fuller told us that. And then he says that the South is a social jungle. metaphors. The South is a part of the global system of white supremacy racism. Black people, these sorts of problems are not just in the so-called South. This is worldwide. That's why this became a worldwide issue, the kissing case, because racism is a worldwide problem, which will be magnified as we continue in the book. Even though when he called it the law of the jungle, that did remind me of Dr. Marimba Ani, where she talks about that word jungle and how that word has been used to enforce white supremacy racism, how we think of places where non-white people live, and how even we should think of environments like New York City or whatever else, but system of white supremacy racism, really the law of counter-violence. That's what we're talking about here. Anywho, Chapter 32, disappointing rift with the national NAACP. Roy Wilkins, the executive secretary of the NAACP, called. His voice was angry, was the voice of an angry and pressured man. He wanted me to come to New York, go on national television, and apologize to the white people of America. Just the way that sounded in my headphones, like our narrator, superb job as normal, professional, all that. Just hearing those combinations of words arranged in that manner. Go on television and apologize to the white people of America. What? Like, my brain was almost like, see, that's why sick day almost was enough to shut my brain computer down. Like, what did you just say? Are there any parallels with the way non-white people in the so-called Middle East are characterized today as crazy, psychopathic terrorists for seemingly only defending themselves against racist white supremacists? I think that's pretty common to non-white people all over the world. Any non-white people who advocate self-defense, or the Japanese during World War II, I think very similar. Any non-white people who attempt to fight back against racism, the Vietnamese, any non-white people who attempt to fight, which we will hear, hey, we got Ho Chi Minh, damn it, coming up. Matter of fact, put a pin in that, because we are about to roll. So do they talk this way about the Vietnamese when we get to Ho Chi Minh? Pin in that one. Bing. For people, who is Ho Chi Minh? Look at the front cover of this book. And, man, I have to give myself a pat on the back. Woo! Gus T. A reason I put my middle finger up. I said, boy, when Gus T. recouped, the whole time I was so salty. Kyle's listeners, y'all have plucked my nerves all year long. So when I get back on, I'm going to remind y'all, y'all have been a nerve-plucking group and super non-constructive all year long. Retired firefighter 0185, non-constructive and nerve-plucking all year long. Oof. Anyway, the segment about Roy Wilkins and the executive secretary of the NAACP, all of that, we'll pay attention when we get to Vietnam, but I give myself a pat on the back. Almost lost my train of thought. I was so disgruntled with the listeners. I give myself a pat on the back because during Michelle Alexander's new Jim Crow read, easily could have been the worst book we ever read. Part of my critique was that she did not connect so-called mass incarceration to Vietnam. We follow up with a book with Ho Chi Minh literally on the front cover. That's why I do not need no suggestions from y'all about books. I got it. Sit down, you pretend readers, illiterate readers. You don't even have the book. Next, Kelly Alexander met with Thurgood Marshall and attempted to solicit his support in removing me from office on the grounds that I was provoking race war. During Thurgood's speech, he stated that he would rather see militant leadership, whatever that means, make honest mistakes than to see them do nothing. Kudos to Justice Marshall. Now, this one I thought was important. Last week, I said, I think Roy Wilkins might have been an informant to the FBI. Now, at least at this juncture, I have no evidence to support that he is an informant. None. There is evidence in Preston Lauterbach's book, or it's written, I will not say evidence. It is written in Preston Lauterbach's book specifically that Roy Wilkins did send information to the FBI. This may not have necessarily been in an informant capacity. There were many people in the NAACP, other organizations, who would talk to the FBI sometimes in the hopes of getting them to do justice and protect black people or keep them abreast of what they were doing or whatever else. But these conversations would be logged. The FBI is looking as a racist organization to extract details and info. So that's one. Two, with Thurgood Marshall, while I had my boost of energy yesterday, I did get a report that said that Thurgood Marshall was an informant, and that's the language that the verbiage specifically was informant. That footnote, because generally when they have audiobooks, I say, hey, you get those audiobooks, it's not the same as getting the book, because they don't read the end notes in the audiobook almost never. I think I've got like one audiobook where they did include the end notes and they were important, but most of the time that's not the case. End note on page 105. Thurgood Marshall served as an informant a second time. That word specifically. They didn't say that he shared information. They say like Ernest Withers in Memphis, informant to the FBI about radical forces within the NAACP. Now, even that, Joel Spingarn set up an organization, in my view, they can generate knowing and or unwitting informants within the organization, because that's the foundation of what this is about, extracting information to share with U.S. enforcement agencies and controlling, steering what non-white people think is the current counter-racist movement. This is what we're doing. And I submit this is probably still going on now because we are so ignorant about all of this to begin with. Why would they need to change? They still give out the Joel Spingarn. That's all I keep saying. That's what I said to the white people who came on here and talked wild this summer, Earl Swift and the rest of them, saying they didn't know about any of this. Hey, black people are ignorant about this now. Why would they need to change anything? We can just refine and keep clowning on these black people, which they do. Let's see. The content, back to the email, just that end note, massively important. Oh, I didn't even finish reading the whole thing. Let me give you the whole thing. Thurgood Marshall served as an informant to the FBI about radical forces within the NAACP. Marshall encouraged the FBI to investigate Robert Williams because he will seek to arouse the people in the North Carolina area to take action which could become violent and cause racial tension and unrest. Thurgood Marshall FBI file quoted in Timothy Tyson, Radio Free Dixie, which I read from earlier. He has the section on Benny Montgomery. So that might be worth checking out to get more of that information. This is on page 155 of that book, Radio Free Dixie. Might even be worthwhile to check Thurgood Marshall's FBI file to see what information is there. Even, did he get to the bench, Supreme Court bench, as a result of thinking on black people like Robert F.? Ignorant. And the other thing, that is playing both sides of the fence. Fuller say that, so you get Thurgood Marshall to come down. He doesn't sound like he's attacking Robert F. He said, hey, I'd rather have one militant member make honest mistakes than have some lazy bones do nothing. It's wow, right on. And then he leaves and goes, okay, look here. I went down and told him, you all keep an eye. This nigger is dangerous. I think he should be investigated. Dang. Master deceivers. And I humbly submit that right there is the handiwork of Joel Spingarn. That's what I would expect from the NAACP. And probably any other organization. Not like this is something that's just or is exclusive to the NAACP. Jesus Christ, we could be talking about the Black Panther Party, SNCC, who Black Lives Matter, whatever that means. We could add, you pick the organization. That's why Fuller says the four-wallism is not going to work. Probably have lots of examples of that as we read through this as well. Let's see. Back to the email. I made this statement again on the same day over Cincinnati radio station and later that evening in a telecast interview in Charlotte. I again made it clear that I spoke of self-defense when the courts failed to protect us. With his discussion of self-defense, did Mr. Williams influence the development of the Black Panther Party? That's going to come up in this book directly. Pen in that. Now, if it doesn't, I can supplement, but I think, yeah, just we'll keep it. So now we have 2 pens. Do they talk about the Vietnamese like they're savages and crazy and all the rest of it when we get to Ho Chi Minh? And then Black Panther Party. Are they influenced by Robert F.? 4. Thurgood Marshall served as an informant. Oh, dang, black brother. Black brother. C.O.W.S. guest. I just said Bluff City, The Secret Life of Ernest Withers and the World of the FBI by Preston Lauterbach, and the documentary Spies of Mississippi. That right there is why, again, Dr. Welsing say, you really should not say anything about racism if you've not thoroughly studied COINTELPRO. Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, he's been a guest many times. There are many, 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 many other books, reports, serious works on COINTELPRO to get a better understanding. So much of this is really getting to the nuts and bolts of how system of white supremacy works. Always good to be reminded, you're not really going to have any secrets. White people are not ignorant about racism. They invest a gargantuan amount of resources into studying and snooping and spying on black people all over the world, decades before TikTok even existed. 5. I had really expected black women board member to be sympathetic towards a black man dedicated to the defense of African American women and children. Har, har, har. I was wrong. I was in a hostile environment and was made to feel that I was a thug. That's about the size of privileged black males. United Independent, as a victim in the global system of racism, white supremacy, you are an army of one. And I think it is always dangerous thinking that black people are going to appreciate or have some gratitude for your attempted counter-racist work. I wouldn't care what you did. Like, you got a black person, you got a dozen black people out of prison, or I don't care what you do. I would expect exactly what he got. You old thug, name calling, you old thug, no counting. Why don't you go apologize to them good white people? Or get on away from around here. You're going to get me in trouble with white people, and I'm going to be just like, get on away from around here. I don't want to hear about it. Get on away from around here. I thought we was cousins. Get on away from around here, cousin. That ain't got nothing to do with it. And don't call me neither. I'll show up on my caller ID. That's what I would expect. Victims, cowards, but that's a part of being victims of terrorism. Chapter 33. Didn't get there. We will pause until we get to the rest of it. Let's see. My highlights for the first chunk of the reading. Oh, we did get that. I can keep going. We did get that far. Let's see. Chapter 33. The first Crusade issue of the Crusader came off newly purchased mimeograph machine on June 26, 1959. It caught on like a firestorm metaphor. The metaphor after we've had all the wildfires here. The importance of the black press is often discussed on the cows, for sure. 2. We were the stepchildren of the NAACP because of our militancy. VGQ. You were not stepchildren. You were victims of white supremacy. Militants and militancy may be words to avoid for victims. Facts. And this is another one where I think not understanding the NAACP and like Joel Spingarn, when you do not grasp all of that and what this organization is about, and four-wallism is not going to work, you probably will have incorrect expectations about how you will be treated. Even now, how much are we going to be able to do within this organization? Four-wallism. 3. Black men who never hesitated to use violence against other black men. White supremacists have done a masterful job on making us confused and cowardly. Really, that right there is often a product of being confused. It's hard to be courageous because you can't be definitive if you're confused about what is happening, what's going on. Joel Spingarn is doing what? When you are confused about all of that, cowardice can be the result, where you just become stupefied and you don't do anything. 4. The national petrified. You don't do anything. Or stupefied work too. 4. The national office of the NAACP was determined to stay within the good graces of the numerous, influential, wealthy, white Northern supporters. We got good graces of whites again. and contributors who were disturbed by our militancy. That word again, militancy. As victims, we all have to function with a system of racism, white supremacy, which forces us to make difficult choices. I think that is why Mr. Fuller used to say, if you want to see Uncle Tom, look in the mirror. Absolutely. And again, this is why four-wallism is not going to work. If the only reason or the only way that the NAACP will survive is that we have to make sure that we don't upset white people, it is not going to be possible to replace white supremacy with justice without upsetting white people. And I would submit all of them. So how are we supposed to function in a sincere manner in a group with the goal is upset white? Is the goal replace white supremacy with justice, or the goal to make sure that whatever we do doesn't upset white people? Just make that clear, and then we can make decisions about what needs to be done as a group. Let's see. Chapter 34, our two sons, Robert and John, volunteered to become the subjects in a move for school integration, the importance of educating children regarding the global system of racism, white supremacy. What an education they're going to get going around the world, coming up shortly. 2. School Superintendent W.R. Kirkman. I remembered how Kirkman had for many years terrified our Negro school with his tyrannical tirades against the black teachers and how they transferred their fear to the young students. Even that right there, we're talking about cowardice, epigenetics, and then you come and terrify all these adults. Imagine the impact for all of those school children, generations of school children, because he was superintendent, I guess, for life. Superintendent for life, excuse me, talking about Kirkman, where you come as a white man and you so terrorize these black teachers and staff and whatever, that their fear is transferred to the children. What impact does that have on black children? Again, now, that's, wow. White people are that dangerous? Like our teachers that are supposed to be in charge of and now they're running around here scared and can't talk, and this white man then berated them and chewed them out and yelled at them, and wow, white people, I don't want no trouble with white people. That's all it could be. Don't you come around here talking about no kissing case. I don't care if they castrate every nephew I got. Don't you come in here talking about no kissing case. I don't want no problems with white people. Don't stay in their good graces. Fear. Powerful. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. She said, I looked up old Kirkman in a chatbot, and it was all favorable. Educational reforms, improving school systems, modernize the curriculum. Nothing of his practice of racism, white supremacy. Hey, who would have documented such conduct other than Robert F.? And I told Jesse Helms Sr., he said, oh, excuse me, that was Junior, that was the Senator Jesse Helms, before he passed, he said, hey, back in the days, the good old days in Monroe, I don't remember anyone mistreating, racially persecuting no, I don't even remember that. We didn't have no racism. Let's see. 3. I mounted a political campaign for mayor of the town. In those days, it was unimaginable that an Afro-American militant, that word, would dare run for mayor of a southern town. Reverend C.O.W.S. volunteered to serve as my campaign manager. Is this the same Ben C.O.W.S., the illustrious civil rights activist who I think may have been a guest on the C.O.W.S? C.O.W.S. was not a guest on the C.O.W.S, but I was thinking the same thing. Is this Ben C.O.W.S? I was thinking, actually, is this Ben C.O.W.S. of the Wilmington 10, who think got arrested some years later in North Carolina and all the rest? Is this Ben C.O.W.S? Or no, I have to look to see if this is the same Ben C.O.W.S. The Chapter 35, escalation of Klan activity, and did he skip a chapter? Where's the? Oh, there it is. Okay. 34, intensified local struggle, bid for local school integration. Our two sons, Robert and John, volunteered to become the subjects in a move for school integration. The importance. Oh, we got that one. Escalation of Klan activity. Okay. This is the one we didn't get all the way through, so I'll just make sure we don't get too far. Okay. The Klan started to raise its ugly hood again. It didn't dare invade our community again. Meetings were being advertised in the media that it was holding giant rallies in rural communities in the county. Isolated blacks were still being harassed and occasionally attacked. Giant rallies? Right. Not all white people are racist. What caught my attention, it said that it didn't dare invade our community again. Why not? Why not? In fact, y'all should be on the list. We got some uppity niggers who think they're tough. Why not? Now, if that's off the list, we're not going to go back there because they might shoot back and it might be, a gun battle. Maybe they win, maybe we lose. Oh, that sounds cowardly to me. And especially I kept reading and it's, hey, isolated blacks were still being harassed and occasionally attacked. What do you mean isolated blacks? What do you mean? That means, so once again, we got the advantage. It's 20 of us and one of them. It's 32 of us and two of them. Okay, yeah. What are you niggers? Yeah. I just told you last week, we had a one-on-one. Robert F. said, hey, black male in the barracks here, y'all racist and mistreating fellow black troops. Hey, let's go one-on-one. Let's have a duel. Let's go one-on-one. You crazy nigger. That's cowardly behavior to me. You got to go jump on an 8-month pregnant black female. You got to go. Matter of fact, you got to go put on masks and disguises to abuse 7- and 9-year-old black boys. You got to wait and catch some black people out when they're isolating, see if we can get them. It's 40 of us and 2 of you. You're a bunch of cowards. Yeah, you racist and all that. You are cowards. All of you. Even Jesse Helms. You go Jesse Helms Sr. and Jr. You got to go drag a black female through the street. Go drag Robert F. You are tough. You tough on black people. Go grab Robert F. Cowards. Let's see. The Grand Dragon, a preacher called Catfish Cole. 5 of our rifle club members armed ourselves with 30 caliber rifles and went to the meeting. James William Catfish Cole, born 1924, died 1967, ordained minister, traveling evangelist, World War II veteran, Sunday radio broadcast host. His Klan rallies would attract as many as 15,000 white people at a time with no cell phones. Had a shooting confrontation with Mr. Williams and his group, Black Armed Guard, who was protecting Dr. Albert Perry at his home in Monroe. After they were thwarted, Cole's group turned their attention to the indigenous Lumbee tribe. His confrontation with the Lumbees was known as the Battle of Hayes Pond in Robeson County, North Carolina. He was also thwarted by 500 Lumbees. He served a 1-year prison sentence for inciting a riot in Portsmouth, Virginia, his only conviction after a lifetime of terrorism. He died from injuries sustained in an auto accident in 1967. Religion of white supremacy. Let's see. 3. Ava Gardner, a white girl who went to school right here in North Carolina, who attended your Sunday schools, had just, who just her third husband for a one-eyed nigger. He was referring to Sammy Davis Jr. White people are not ignorant about racism, white supremacy. Not at all. And Sammy Davis, I guess, would be a double whammy. He's like, hey, we got nigger, or a triple whammy. He's nigger, Jewish, so-called, and married a white person. We kill him 3 times. I don't know. And then we drag him through the street. Benny Montgomery, do all that too. Okay, we didn't get that far. Bing, we'll stop. I did do the inflation calculator when Robert F. talked about not having money and the economic terrorism against T, which I've heard before. Rosa Parks faced the same thing in Alabama when they did the Montgomery bus boycott. They terrorized her husband, her parents. They couldn't get jobs, saying that make you lose your house, can't pay your mortgage, can't even feed yourself and go get groceries because nobody has a job. That it was a real, and they did the same thing. Would call on the phone or terrorize you. Or even that That right there is Reb and Dill. Might as well put the busy box on the phone so you get a busy signal every time they call. It's the same cowardly behavior. Why do we have to ring your phone all night long? You just show up at the house. Hey, let's do a duel, Ben Tillman style. Or let's, we go out and fight. All that. We'll live stream it. Nah, I'm a play on your phone all night long. That is cowardly behavior. And especially Robert F. go show up in person. I'm here now. You were saying you supposed to be, you that Negro we were looking for. Come here. Pap, 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 pap. You gonna behave. We done told you. I don't care if we rape your mother. Don't you say nothing. And you talking about you gonna kill a white person. You not. That's what you supposed to do. Not. Cat got your tongue? Y'all supposed to be tough. Where's the spirit of Ben Tillman? Spirit of Jesse Helm. You tough on the Negro. Be tough on. That's what I said. Don't just be tough on a pregnant black female. Don't just be tough on a 7-year-old black boy. Be tough on Rob. It's just 5 niggers with gun. That's all it takes is 5 niggers with gun. Now you not tough? It's on display over and over. We're obviously super cowards as well because we don't do nothing but sit around and beat up on other black people and name call them. Nothing to brag about there, but woo, it is boatloads of white cowardice all through this. And again, Dr. Gerald Horne said this is a hallmark of white culture. It is basically cowardly. Is reams of this all around the world where they do this exactly all the time. We get tough and stick our chest out once we got a big advantage over y'all. We got all the weapons and you got sticks. We tough now. You're cowards. Let's see. I was going to do the inflation calculator. He said the black males who made about $40 a week, thereabouts, that would be a little less than $500 a week. Now, he said that they would give him $2 per week. That would be about $20, a little over $20 a week now. So anybody thinking how you would do in the good graces of having a few black males who give you $20 every week as your only source of income, how you think he would come out? And then kudos to the black farmers who they say, hey, we don't have no money, but we can bring you a boatload of, fresh produce every week. Maybe you can't go get any groceries, but hey, we got all kinds of North Carolina. So, I mean, hey, you got some yams and sweet taters and string beans, okra, Brussels sprouts. You won't starve to death. Importance of black people having gardens would probably be a lot less of that now. Not as many black farmers. Let's see. Last thing I'll get in, then we'll push off to audio segment 2. I'm not sure I would telegraph to white people, especially white reporters, if I was any of our strategy. He had talked about the importance of surprise. I think there's no reason to telegraph your strategy to white people, to tell them that we're going to resort to counterviolence or what have you. We will be changing our strategy or adjusting our strategy accordingly, and that's all we have to say moving forward. Just knowing they're going to lie and whatever if you say, even if you said, hey, I'm resorting to counterviolence, they would just changed it. He said he's going to kill every white child and woman in the world. That's not what he said. He's going to kill every white child and woman in the world. Master deceivers. And then they'll even get a whole lot of non-white people to go around and Rob did say he was going to kill all the white children and babies in the world, and you shouldn't have said that, Rob. You need to go on television and apologize for saying you were going to kill all the white babies. I didn't even say we'll apologize anyway. Wait a minute. Let's see. And even this will be the last one. He said that when he was suspended by the NAACP, in order to combat the emerging sympathy toward me, the national office found it expedient to issue a special convention pamphlet attacking me. That right there, military intelligence. We got the resources, the wherewithal. Really, that's like FBI stuff where they just we have resources, assets in the press, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Time Magazine, you name it. We could just go give them whatever we want, print whatever lies that we want you to say about Dr. King, Malcolm X, Black Panther Party, Robert F. Williams, Mabel Williams, print whatever we want you to say, and everyone will believe it. Tell him he's a militant. Tell him he was going to kill all the white people. He was going to kidnap all the white children. He was around there raping white babies. Print all of that. Oh, my God, Robert Williams was raping white women? Yep, he was killing them and raping them, too. How do you even get resources to do all of that just on a dime? We can just stop and, we're going to put some pamphlets out about this Negro. Like, dang, military intelligence. Is that it? Is that the last one? I can ride. Anything else, I can make it up. We come back around. Delectable Negro, he said during all these attacks, he said he felt like free meat to the bigots, racists of North Carolina and beyond. The delectable Negro, and he been nice and tenderized. They done went and lied and got everybody all lathered up and hungry and salivating at the mouth. We gonna get that Negro, Rob. But even with that, with all that, white people were so cowardly. Rob didn't say it. We had to go and sweep bullets off of the porch every day. He said that they were hot. They didn't want to get too close to the house. We wanted to call and play on your phone all night long so y'all can't sleep. Cowards. Back to it. Katherine Massey Book Club. Context of White Supremacy. Audio segment number 2.
Relative to the series of initiatives we had taken, local bigots were inflamed to the kindling point. The only thing that kept them from waging all-out war was the realization of the terrible injury we were equipped and ready to inflict on them. Beginning late in 1959, I had begun to run articles about Cuba in the Crusader, extolling the effort on behalf of racial equality there. The article seemed to have stirred up the national office of the NAACP, for Roy Wilkins sent me a letter which included statements such as these. I wonder, however, whether you are fully aware of the dangers and disadvantages of the course of action you seem to favor. I have followed closely the events in Cuba in recent months, and in particular Dr. Castro's visit to the United Nations this fall. Regardless of the merits of the Cuban cause, I was greatly disturbed by the frequent show of insincerity which I believe should give you food for thought before you find yourself used as just another pawn in the present unfortunate feud between Cuba and our country. It is a callous interference in a Native American problem, and should be recognized as such by anyone in a responsible position of leadership in the American Negro movement. The present Cuban attempts to endear themselves to American Negroes are obviously caused by ulterior motives. Let me just ask you how the American Negro tourist would feel in Cuba at the constant chant of Cuba sí, Yanqui no. And are you willing to forsake the important support of that section of the people who are equally opposed to suppression of Negro rights in our country? Does not the unfortunate example of the great American Negro singer Paul Robeson show you the dangers and mistakes of the road which you seem to be choosing? What has Paul Robeson, with all his greatness, done for the American Negro in his present struggle for equality? The answer, regrettably as it is, must be nothing. In my reply to Roy Wilkins and the national office I wrote, only a fool or mercenary hypocrite could muster the gall to call a nation and its great leader insincere in dealing with the captive blacks of North America when in the course of their daily lives they display the greatest measure of racial equality and social justice in the world today. It is certainly a first magnitude truism that social justice starts at home and spreads abroad. In the past months I have been twice to Cuba, and there is nothing insincere about my being made to feel that I was a member of the human race for the first time in my life. If this is America's idea of insincerity, then heaven help this nation to become insincere, like Fidel Castro, and free Cuba in granting persons of African descent entrance into the human race. As for my being used as a pawn in the struggle of Cuba against imperialist and racist North America, I prefer to be on the side of right than on the side of Jim Crow and oppression. I prefer to be used as an instrument to convey the truth of a people who respect the rights of man rather than to be used as an Uncle Tom, whitewasher of black oppression and injustice, and an apologist for American hypocrisy. Cuba's aversion for America's inhumanity to man is not an interference in Native American problem. It is a common knowledge that the master race of the free world is out to export North American manufactured racism. Racism in the USA is as much a world problem as was Nazism. If the USA is to be the only nation exempt from the Human Rights Charter of the United Nations, then that august body is a party to the great transgressions against America's captive people. I, for one, refuse to remain silent and cooperate with the very force that is seeking after my destruction. The racists in America are the most brutal people on earth. It is foolhardy for an oppressed Afro-American to take the attitude that we should keep this little life and death struggle a family affair. We are the oppressed. It is only natural for us to air our grievances at home and abroad. This race fight in the USA is no more a fight to be fought just by Americans than is the fight for black liberation to be conducted by colored only. Any struggle for freedom in the world today affects the stability of the whole society of man. Why would you make our struggle an exception? I am not afraid of alienating white friends of our liberation movement. If they really believe in freedom, they will not resent deviation from the old worn path that has led us in fruitless circles. If they are insincere, they are no more than Trojan horses infiltrating our ranks to strike us a treacherous, nefarious blow on behalf of those and that which they pretend to detest. For if they resent our becoming truly liberated, they will detest us for not following their misguided and skillful subterfuge designed to prevent our arrival to the promised land. They speak much of tolerance, yet they display unlimited intolerance toward those Afro-Americans who refuse to become their puppets and yes-men, Uncle Toms. It is strange that I am asked how a Negro American tourist would feel in Cuba hearing the constant chant of Cuba Si, Yankee No. No one has bothered to ask how it feels to constantly face white-only signs. These signs mean white yes, colored no. No one has asked me how it feels to be marched under guard with felons along a public street to jail for sitting on a white-only stool. On hearing Cuba Si, Yankee No, and having lived all of my life under American oppression, I was emotionally moved to join the Liberation Chorus. I knew it didn't apply to me because the white Christians of the free world have excluded me from everything Yankee. You make a cardinal mistake when you fail to give the great Paul Robeson credit for making a great contribution to the American Negro struggle. Paul Robeson is living proof that the Afro-American need not look upon the United States as nigger heaven and the last stop for us on this earth. Paul is living proof that the other civilized societies honor and respect black people for the things that free America curses, oppresses, and starves us for. Paul has proven that all black men are not for sale for 30 pieces of silver. He has lit a candle that many of the new generation will follow. Yes, wherever there is oppression in the world today, it is the concern of the entire human race. My cause is the same as the Asians against the imperialists. It is the same as Cuba against the white supremacist imperialists. When I become part of the mainstream of American life, based on universal justice, then, and then only, can I see a possible mutual cause for unity against outside interference. In spite of my highly charged conflict with the national office and its submissive supporters, I never wanted to create the impression that I was against the NAACP. On the contrary, I thought it to be an important weapon in our freedom struggle, and I wanted with all my heart to strengthen it. It was deeply hurtful for me to think of all that had happened to me, and especially to our dehumanized race during our long ordeal in the so-called free world of the United States of America, and to know that the NAACP, to which I belonged, was more concerned about denigrating and slandering victimized little Cuba than in giving aid to the besieged black people of Monroe, North Carolina.
Audio was not behaving correctly for some reason. Anyway, the audio, I think we hopped over a chapter because I was looking for the first attempt on Robert F. Williams' life, and I do not see that. So I paused it just to make sure that we're not missing audio segments and all the rest of it. We'll just make sure that when we resume on next Friday, we're picking up with chapter 37. That's where I was looking for, because it looked like it hopped right over pool protest reinitiated. So probably in my congested and sick state, I probably didn't grab the right audio segment for 37. So we had everything to get in there this week. Not sure how I did all that, but not thinking my best this week, still recuperating. But we'll be picking up next Friday, chapter 37, pool protest reinitiated, violent backlash, and first attempt on my life. Katherine Massey Book Club. Now, let's see. I will go back, make sure I don't miss my notes, see if folks have thoughts on the second chunk that we heard, even though it was a little abbreviated. Should have heard maybe a chapter or two more quickly, but next week. And then I'll get the rest of our emails in. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let's see. I'll finish up our email since we didn't get as far as I thought. I'll finish that up and then see if folks have their thoughts. I can get in my notes as well. Let's see. All right, so finishing up where we left off at the Afro-American trucker who was passing through town. He had brought us a gift, compliments of Teamsters Union. Box he gave was a full case of dynamite. There have been innumerable discussions of the use of dynamite against victims on the cows. This is the first time that I can recall that it was potentially used against racist white supremacists. 5. Telephone threats against my family and me started around the clock. Now the threats are through social media. 6. Black man whom the racist trusted as a good Negro, all-night service station where many white men congregated, overheard one of the men making threats on the telephone, came to inform us as to what he had observed. 6 of us got our weapons. I announced to them that I was Robert Williams, that they had been making threatening calls to my house around the clock. After that confrontation, the calls ceased. Mr. Williams was truly courageous. True and equally, race soldiers demonstrate so much cowardice. Like, that's all it takes, really, is 6 armed black privileged dudes. You must be joking. 7. Ratio businessman developer attracted a textile mill, Boston, Massachusetts, to Monroe. He interceded on my behalf and convinced the owner to hire and train me. I was elated at last that I was going to have the opportunity to explore an income-producing opportunity. When the mayor of Baden, North Carolina, recognized me from the photographs that had appeared in the press, that was the end of my promised career. The importance of FOIA requests has an area of much discussion on recent C.O.W.S broadcasts, emphasis from Gus T. And even Dr. Welsing doesn't say FOIA requests, but this is connected to her saying you should study COINTELPRO, one of the best ways, making FOIA requests. And that helps you understand something like this when we say system of white supremacy racism, even forming like Voltron, again, where we are trained to think that this is something deficient within us. No, this is widespread sabotage by white people. And we're going to see that this nigger does not get it. We've heard this over and over again. White people, we're going to see that he doesn't get a job. We're going to see that he doesn't get a job. We're going to see that he doesn't get a job. Happening now, 2026, I am sure. 8. Canceled my car insurance. Local laborers gave me $2. Black farmers brought us food. Local whites failed to starve me out. Delectable Negro. They spread the rumor that I was being supported by communists. They could never accept the fact that blacks could ever demonstrate. An example of victims helping victims, something we cannot always expect, but should nevertheless be acknowledged. Oh, for sure, for sure. Gratitude for doing the best. I gave the inflation calculator so you can kind of see what this is and kind of the dire straits of all. If you have to live off less than $500 per week, or you have to live off of those individuals giving you $20 per week to live off of. Let's see. Connecting with Cuba Libre and red baiting in the NAACP, Chapter 36. Summer of 1960, I was extended an invitation to become a founding member of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. Lee Harvey Oswald, other black activists and intellectuals on this historic trip to Cuba included historian John Henrik Clark, author and political organizer Leroy Jones, a.k.a. Amiri Baraka, novelist John Oliver Killens, political theorist Harold Cruz, and writer and actor Julian Mayfield. This passage has a lot of overlap with the previous book clubs, Cuba, Asada, an autobiography, Asada Shakur, Inadmissible Evidence by Evelyn Williams, Lee Harvey Oswald, echoes from Dealey Plaza, Abraham Bolden. The other names mentioned were either directly or indirectly connected to Maya Angelou, The Heart of a Woman, and a song flung up to heaven. Oh, John Oliver Killens, remember, big time in Maya Angelou. Every time when I see Fair Play for Cuba, Lee Harvey Oswald, allegedly a member of this group, which comes up in the Kennedy assassination, but it also comes up there suggested that this is some sort of CIA front organization. Anyway, 2. U.S. Ambassador Philip Bonzel. I told him that if anything should happen to my family, I would kill Americans in Havana, and he would be the first one to go. What can I say? Fearless. For sure. 3. Cuban flag disappeared. Black paratrooper had torn it down. Black tough named Holly Shannon struck him, held a knife to his throat. The soldier survived the ordeal. 2 days later, the paratrooper came to my door and gave me a repaired, cleaned, starched, and ironed, neatly folded Cuban flag. He was sorry, wanted to apologize, done it while drinking, and prompted by a dare. Confusion amongst non-white victims can be lethal, especially the drinking part. I don't know if the friend was a non-white person who pitched this dare, but it wouldn't surprise me. 4. NAACP for Roy Wilkins sent me a letter, and yourself used as just another pawn in the present unfortunate feud between Cuba and our country. Our country. What was Paul Robeson, with all his greatness, done for the American Negro in his present struggle for equality? The answer, regrettable as it must be, nothing. Reply to Roy Wilkins, I have twice been to Cuba, and there is nothing insincere about my being made to feel that I was a member of the human race for the first time in my life. It is a common knowledge that the master race of the free world is out to export North American manufactured racism. Racism in the USA is as much a world problem as was Nazism. Know that the NAACP, to which I belong, was more concerned about denigrating and slandering victimized little Cuba than in giving aid to the besieged black people of Monroe. Mr. Williams' response is a coined phrase, mic drop. Lots, even his response reminded me, like, dang, didn't Castro go to New York and meet with Minister Malcolm X? And white people were very upset about this. They have whole books written about this experience, and they talked about racism against black people and racism against the black people around the world, because they talked about Patrice Lumumba. Like, I mean, I guess you could have critiques about, whatever, but at the end of the day, hey, let's replace white supremacy with justice, not sit here and get on, no, is you a communist, and what about Paul Robeson? Even that, we talked about Paul Robeson, but didn't I mention Dr. Gerald Horne? Didn't we, the biography kings, didn't we read Dr. Gerald Horne, the artist that's revolutionary, on Paul Robeson, also a victim of COINTELPRO, one of the original COINTELPRO victims, probably got extensive CIA file, State Department file, FBI file, Secret Service file, on and on and on. Cowbell, too, on that one, if it means anything. But in my view, the problem is not, hey, isn't that Paul Robeson a communist? It's, hey, any black person, you speak up and try and say something about racism, white people will be out to neutralize you. They did the same thing to Paul Robeson. We're going to take away your passport, see if we can totally destroy your career so you can't get any work, can't travel, can't do anything. Then see how much you want to deal with racism there, buddy. The great Paul Robeson, victim of white supremacy. Okay, somehow we skipped, my fault, the chapter 37 on the pool protest, but we'll pick up there for next week. Let's see, our caller at 5962, get commentary on our abbreviated second session. Feel free.
Yes, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Something that I forgot to mention from the first reading that we left at, or that I left out, was right at the end when he talks about how he told the ambassador that if anything had happened to his family, that he was going to start killing Americans in Havana. I just noted that part, that he seems to have, like, Mr. Williams seems to have some sort of resolve or comfort in the fact that they sent the police department to patrol the neighborhood and his house specifically. And I was just thinking, I'm not quite sure if that's the response he wanted. Isn't this the same police that put on hoods and beat on 7 and 9-year-old children? So that was the only thing I forgot to mention from that last reading. And then from the shortened reading we had just now, the only thing that I noted was that that letter from Mr. Wilkins to Mr. Williams, where they're talking about him not being a pawn in Cuba's struggle. It doesn't seem to me that Mr. Wilkins is aware of the total global system that's taking place, and that Mr. Williams isn't a pawn in Cuba's struggle. Everyone who's non-white is a pawn in racist white supremacy. And I believe that is all I have for now.
Much obliged, sir. At minimum, he would have to be confused about global system of racism, if not out and out tasked with, literally, for this to be happening at the time when the signs are still up in the U.S. and other parts of the world that white only, no Negroes type of sundown towns, that type of a thing, to be talking about how can you be in Cuba and talking about some where they got the signs of Cuba see Yankee no, like, what does that even have to do with me as a non-white person victim of white supremacy? Am I supposed to see that? And, oh man, they don't want me here. They are not talking about me as no Yankee. They are not talking about me as no threat to Cuba's sovereignty. That is not what they are talking about at all. So, yeah, but that's where I come back. Now, is this a part of the task that I've been given to reel him in directly, indirectly? Maybe Roy Wilkins didn't even write that. Who knows? But, I mean, really, all non-white people are pawns in the system of white supremacy. All. Let's see. Scrolling back so I can get some of my thoughts for the shortened, and I did. I went back. I just grabbed the wrong audio file, had it right there for chapter 37, and just goofed it, not thinking the best, being a little under the weather. So we'll pick up chapter 37. That's all that means. We'll start chapter 37 for next Friday. Can't hear the second attempt on Robert Williams' life before we heard the first. Going back to where we picked up at for the the second audio section. The portion where he talks about, we already got the school. I'm not sure if Kirkman was humiliated or if he was just upset to have Robert F. Williams challenge him publicly. I'm sure he had not had a black person speak to him that way before. This is the white superintendent, not out of a sense of guilt or shame, but just, I cannot believe this uppity nigger. We should have castrated him, that type of a thing. And what we going to do to get him back? Like, I can't believe it. Let's see. When he talks about after Catfish gives his speech and he says volunteers were beginning to show up from many unexpected places. 2 white students from Davidson College came offering their services. 2 soldiers, 1 black, 1 white, came from Fort Jackson, South Carolina, offering to get us any kinds of weapons we needed to fight off the Klan. Now, some of that might have been sincere, well-meaning, especially if it's a black person, but white people, so-called white volunteers showing up and, hey, we want to pitch in and help out the Negro. What? I'm assuming, especially we want to bring guns. What? You working with the FBI or something, trying to entrap us? What is going on here? Because they did have COINTELPRO programs that were exactly that, having Finks spies come in and traffic guns or something else so they could say that you're some militant and we told you he was going out to kill all the white people and then arrest you for that. So maybe these are genuine, folks who want to help out and battle off the Klan. Maybe. It would at least be something I would think about. The so-called safe Negro or good Negro who snitched and told Robert Williams where the phone calls were emanating from, just paying attention. Let's talk about that all the time for workplace racism. Listening. He didn't say he had his headphones on and was listening to the new Kendrick Lamar. No, I'm going to get this vending machine. I'm just paying attention and, I will pass this information along. We maybe even our first illustration in the book of the constructive snitching. Love it. And this is for sure snitching because this is incorrect behavior. So right on. Although it would not be for personal gain. I don't think the black dude doing the vending machine, he didn't say Robert F. Williams hooked him up with $1,000 or something like that. So let's see. I thought that was when Roy Wilkins says, what has Paul Robeson, with all his greatness, done for the American Negro in his present struggle for equality? Like white people did so much to neutralize him. Like, I did not appreciate that. Now, again, I don't know if Roy Wilkins really wrote this, if this was his task or what, but like, wow, J. Edgar Hoover and white people did so much to try to neutralize him and have him killed. Again, we read the biography, Gerald Horne's biography, and then spoke with Gerald Horne about all that as well on the program. Just that could be said really for any black person. We're still in a system of white supremacy. So what have you even done, Roy Wilkins? All of your work at the NAACP, what have you done to get this problem solved? It's still here. Whatever the answer is, it's not sufficient, right? That would be applicable to all of us. 0185, I'm disappointed in you too, Roy Wilkins. Yep. Let's see. Oh, and we get the white friends. On page 119, he says, I'm not afraid of alienating a white friend. This is Robert F. Williams' response letter. I'm not afraid of alienating white friends of our liberation movement. If they really believe in freedom, they will not resent deviation from the old worn path that has led us in fruitless circles. Super reasonable, if such people even exist. But I also was thinking, like, man, who is this Roy Wilkins dude? Like, do we have freedom of thought? What sort of groupthink do you all have at the NAACP, especially groupthink in the spirit of making sure we don't rile up white people too much, where you have to think the same way about Cuba, you have to think the same way about nonviolence, you have to think the same way about the Kiss Case. Like, what is going on here? That would be a problem as well. Like, this seems like we don't have freedom. It's not united independent. This seems like if you're a part of the NAACP, we are all supposed to have the same thought process, the same view on every matter with regard to racism. And you already know that is not the case. I mean, come on. So what is all of this having somebody every time I have a view that's different from the NAACP's position, I got to be suspended and chastised and have all these lengthy written exchanges again? Now, if this is for-wallism, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe we just need to ditch all this and you all do what you do, I do what I do, because this right here would wear me down. I got to talk to Roy Wilkins every other week, or anybody else. It just happens to be Roy Wilkins here. I got to talk to you every other day, every other week, all these contentious dialogues, and you taking punitive measures against me and then lying and putting out pamphlets against me. How long am I supposed to endure? And how much time is this wasting? Time. We talk about that with a retired firefighter. Wasting time. Wasting time. Let's just get to replacing white supremacy with justice, not wasting time. Let's see. He says, at the end of page 120, it was deeply hurtful for me to think of all that had happened to me and especially to our dehumanized race during our long ordeal in the so-called free world of the United States of America, and to know that the NAACP, to which I belong, was more concerned about denigrating, that word denigrating, deniggering, we talked about it earlier this year, and slandering victimized little Cuba than in giving aid to the besieged black people of Monroe, North Carolina. Facts. Now again, Joel Spingarn. I can see why that would be, and this is why Fuller said for-wallism is not going to work. You can expect this sort of distractions, and where we're supposed to have a clean objective, or even just, what about these young black boys in Monroe? We get to that later. We got to get back. You didn't upset the white people. We got to get to that. You got to get that apology to them white people first. Then we'll deal with these little raping black boys. Maybe, probably not. Let's see. Yeah, then we didn't get we did not get chapter 37. We'll get that one for next week. Let's see. Anything else I want to make sure I get in? The white woman who came down that Robert F. Williams talked about, this is going back a little bit with the kissing case, where he said she came down and she wanted to be served. She went to the restaurant and said, oh, no, we're not with all that. You should go over and be with the niggers. And she said that she was so, I guess, disheveled or what have you, that she went back up north and they never heard from her again. That, in my view, is not a well-meaning white person. That is not, because I think this is the same white woman that he said that the black people came to support her at the trial, that they, appreciated her using her time and energy. That right there, in my view, nope. This is why there's no such thing as white people who are not racist. You have that opportunity at any point. That I am allegedly down here because I'm not racist. I'm allegedly working against racism, but at any time I have that ability. Hey, this ain't for me. You niggers is kind of hard-headed, and or this racism thing seems like it's going to be kind of difficult. White people seem kind of dedicated to mistreating you niggers, so I don't know. It might take a little more time than I thought. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick this thing out. I'm going to go on and, deuce out. I'm going to wish you all the best from afar. They have that opportunity at any point. As such, hey, it just ain't going to be no jumping up and down and, wow, this is the greatest white person ever. Wow. No, because this was right at the beginning of 31, where it said the white woman lawyer went across the street to the Bluebird ice cream parlor hoping to be served a sandwich. The manager of the Bluebird asked her to leave and go back with the niggers because they served only white people there. Like her whiteness done been impugned. You's a nigger lover. Get on out of here. And that traumatized her so much she left and didn't hear from. She didn't even send him a postcard. I'm still hanging in there with you, Brother Robert. You keep up the good fight. Let me know if you need some bullets. Nothing. Said she dipped and never even spoke to them again. That right there is what it means to be. That's your that's not all white peoples is racist. You have to do way better than that for Gus T. Way better. I am not sure if we will do it up broadcasting for tomorrow, Counter Racist Review. I'm not feeling well. If I had been, I suspect we would have had chapter 37. At any rate, and because I was sick all week, I didn't get to do the normal prep work that would lead to the Counter Racist Review. So it'd be compensating for not having done all of that work to then see if I could cram it all in tomorrow. I am not 100%, so I'm not sure if I'd even have the energy to compensate for all of that missed time and trying to go out. I did check the news to a little degree, but nowhere near what I normally would have done. So not sure if I really pressed me on it. I'd say probably not, especially we're going ahead and doing our rain check. The other thing I would have done, I would have rescheduled everything later to give myself ample time to recuperate so that if we're doing our makeup schedule starting Sunday, all of that stuff would have been pushed later so that I would have a little bit more time to get right as rain. But it is what it is. I think we should be trying to make up for everything that was missed this week starting Sunday. So if we're sticking on that schedule, I continue to feel better. I would be okay missing tomorrow to come back Sunday, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and get our white guest from last week that we were supposed to miss. And we're supposed to have another white guest this past Tuesday. We can recoup both of those programs, and I can be feeling reasonably better starting off the new week. Right on. Persevere as best we can. Been a rough summer, rough year. System of white supremacy, so I guess to be expected. That's it. So I guess Sunday, double check, see if Gus T is up to it, hasn't relapsed, and ready to roll for Sunday evening white guest, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then we'll have updates, hopefully as Gus T gets back and right as rain. Again, I said now, when Gus T gets back and is feeling it, I will be here. I've said for years, stop wasting non-white people's time and energy. In my view, you are wasting time. You call a book club and you don't have the book consistently and you just want to add misinformation and random talk from not even paying attention, that's wasting time and talking tangents. That's why I'm not even taking your hand, retired firefighter. Get the book. I don't care if you've heard Robert F. Williams' name before to talk about what you heard before. Get the book to participate correctly, particularly since you have a habit of not paying attention and dialing in to waste our time, that day is done for the book club. We will be back Sunday, depending on how I feel and all of that. Sobriety would be best. As heard from the book club, you do not want to be intoxicated at the club and or intoxicated system of white supremacy racism. We need sober minds making great decisions to solve our problems. That said, Creator, remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. What about the white lawyer who risked her life, come down here and go to the white ice cream parlor and they wouldn't even let her get no Rocky Road? Stop saying not all white people are racist. Gus T even say the white people who bring you guns to fight off the Klan, they are suspicious too. If you got such people, I don't know such people, but if you know such people, they are super suspect. Remind us, stop name calling and cursing other black people. Heck, my commentary for today reminded me, I had said for years, my ad to the 10 Stop was, stop wasting non-white people's time and energy, especially your own. We have professional time wasters in the Cows audience. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.